The following is a multimedia rendition of a post found on the delvercollective.com. For more Xaxa River Valley and other RPG content, check out that site. Welcome once more. Last session, the party secured the unearthed war machine and bolstered their forces with prisoners from the Solar Church. Between sessions, we also added a detail to the war machine. A deck of cryopods that allow absent PCs to sleep between sessions if they aren't able to make it. I expected to have 4 players for our third session, but we started with only 2, Mirazir the Alchemist and Doghide Kobek. We dove straight in. First, they decided to question Lord Solomon, asking about his relation to the church, his motivation to claim the machine, and what spells he had access to. Solomon, his tongue loosened by Mirazir's charms, explained that he was one of many ecclesiarchs in the Solar Order, and that their scrolls showed where many such war machines were buried. Sun Church prophecies claim that Scions of Fire were to ride the holy relics of war in opposition to the Earth Eater, a darkness hidden behind the dying sun. Praise Nucleos! He further explained that a blast from their sun shrine was responsible for unearthing the war machine in the first place. This blast was charged with radiance, causing the Titan's weapon systems to go critical on impact, and this is why the ground smoldered so. As far as magic, Solomon was equipped with spells of cleansing to purge the charred earth. Finally, he told them he and his acolytes were a vanguard force, tasked with digging out the holy relic. The main host would be arriving in less than 2 weeks. How was Solomon going to dig out the machine? The great mirror he wore upon his back, now lashed to a party camel, functioned to focus the sun into a beam of light capable of melting rock. The party discussed this new information for a bit before setting Solomon and his acolytes to work. With their mirrored laser, it would take 6 days to dig out the Titan. Kobek also took this opportunity to try to convert some of the acolytes to his jackal god's religion, by questioning their philosophy surrounding the darkening of the sun. These probings failed and they remained fervent in their beliefs, unable to fathom a reality without the light of Nucleos. Mirazir and Kobek turned their focus to the damaged blast ray. After studying a diagnostic in the ring-shaped control center, the alchemist surmised that 3 cooling pylons must be re-engaged in the rear of the weapon to wrangle the meltdown. Donning a priestly protective vestment, Kobek passed into the west hall beyond the tripath junction room. Condensation ran in rivulets down the metallic halls, evidence of the overheating blast ray. He then approached a double bulkhead to the north. Steaming, boiling waters roiled in the deep of the pit, and without warning would surge up to flood the room. Sensing immense danger, Kobek went back to retrieve sleeping Altair's boots of levitation. He slipped them on his feet, then returned to the boiling room. Clicking the heels together, Kobek floated up, then pulled himself along the cabling and metal in the ceiling. Each time, he dropped down to the platforms and made a strength check to flip the latches. Before any scalding water could burn him, he'd float back up to the ceiling. 3 successes later, the waters of the deep swirled in a harmonious whirlpool, flowing through the blast ray. It was fixed and ready to fire. Kobek and Mirazir headed up and out of the war machine head cave. While climbing over the ridge, they could see for miles across Xaxa River Valley, and spotted several caravans converging on their position in the hills. There were convoys of many people coming from 3 directions. Dead east marched a solar procession more vast than the first, spoken of by Solomon. They bore many gifts for the Titan. The great host was 100 acolytes strong, each 10 led by a solar ecclesiarch. 12 camels were lashed together sled-like, dragging behind them some vast machine which left gouges in the sand. More power cells for the boarding axe, and a mighty artifact to upgrade the Titan. It was a boon that interested both Mirazir and Kobek greatly. The solar host would arrive in 12 days' time. From the north, a war levy 80 camel riders strong rode in formation 2 by 2 along the river. These were the bannermen of the kingdom of Capricos, and were led by a man called Bashir. They were only 6 days away. Southward marched a throng so large it would take 2 days to walk its entire length. All manner of merchants, holy saints, pilgrims, farmers, and city folk were making the journey north from Torrance to worship the war machine and the scions who rode it. It would take the multitudes 9 days walking. A little side note here. I was going to have Red Hawk bring them all this information. He missed last session but was planning on being here this time, so I thought it would be really cool for the Wasteland Ranger to pop back in with a warning of 3 caravans marching on their position. Something came up for Red Hawk's player, so instead I had to deliver my game content through another medium, looking out from the head of the war machine across the valley. If a player is absent during a session, you can have their character go off-screen, work one-on-one with them, and still have the PC interact with the world. Even though it didn't work out this time, the same technique can be used to deliver info to your players. Use absent characters as story vehicles. Adventures are never stagnant, especially if they weren't at the last session. This cranks up the immersion and helps your world feel alive. So, back to the session. At this point, Altair joined. The party discussed hiring additional help in Pern to speed up the Titan's excavation. They wanted it out of the ground before anyone arrived. The thief forked over some silver and suggested purchasing some riding lizards from the stables. Murazir opted to go and took a camel. It was 2 days to Pern. He collected his silver reward from the elders who fell on their faces at his feet singing, "Hail, hail, O scions of radiant fire." Murazir hired a fair number of laborers, bought 2 riding lizards, then took them back north to the foothills. As he and his mount were running along the river, he saw a fair maiden, disheveled and clearly on the run, stumbling at the banks. The beautiful girl bore dark markings on her skin and kept looking over her shoulder as if hunted. She spotted Murazir and stumbled toward him, shouting for help. She introduced herself as an escaped slave, but Murazir easily saw through the facade. Her high cheekbones spoke of noble blood, and the tatters she wore were obviously of rich quality. Sensing his perception, she finally spoke the truth. "I am Princess Quintessa of Capricos. My evil uncle Bashir killed my father, the king, and took the crown for himself. He has raised my bannermen to capture me under false claims so he might sell me in Torrance to the south." Murazir took her upon his mount, though inwardly discussed her value as a bargaining chip. Onward they rode into the hills. The laborers were brought and set to work. Quintessa was spoken with further. Someone asked if she had any spells. She explained that all in the Capricos bloodline had magic. Darts of fire could spring forth from her fingers in moments of desperation. This was supposedly a boon from Nucleos, whom she praised as well. They decided to keep her safe inside the war machine. Murazir, Kobek, and Altair set to conspiring. The Capricosian war host would reach the war machine just as the digging completed, so the party decided to ride out and meet them prematurely. Bashir and his sorcerer rode to meet them mounted upon camels, with the 80 spearmen holding behind. The party claimed to be prospectors digging in the hills for buried machines. "I too have an interest in buried machines. Most interesting. And yet I speak to you now, asking if you've seen my daughter, princess of my noble house Capricos. I wish to see her return to safety so that we might go home." Bashir pulled out one of the golden time orbs and held it out, saying, "I am willing to exchange this mighty artifact for her safe return." The party paused and truly discussed turning her in for the orb. They needed to secure orbs for each character before the darkening of days. Finally, they chose the high ground, and instead claimed she joined the solar host east of the river. Bashir seemed to believe this, and offered that they march together to meet this procession. He also sent 10 of his camel riders into the foothills to aid in the search for buried machines, which will surely be a problem for the party. The session ended with Murazir, Kobek, and Altair riding with Bashir and the Capricocian Levy to meet the priests on Xaxa River. We played for less than 2 hours, and no weapons were drawn, yet it was a packed session. Our party hopes to turn Bashir and the Solar Host against each other, claiming both of their boons in the ensuing chaos. The pieces move in Xaxa River Valley, and the clock ticks ever down. Thank you for joining us. If you think this video was cool, consider dropping a like or leaving a comment below. As I'm sure you know, it helps the channel grow, and I really want to be making more of this kind of content. Feel free to check out thedelvercollective.com for more RPG recaps and tips and tricks for game masters. Until next time, happy gaming.